All right, we are live.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we wait like 2 minutes for everybody to log in.
We already have some attendees dialed in. Thank you, guys.
That's awesome.
Great weather, isn't it?
Yeah. Let's give a 1 minute more and then we'll start
Okay.
at 3:02.
Sure, I think we can manage. We have half an hour.
Half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So 3:30 should be done. For the next webinar, we should put some music. And
Right, I agree.
all right, shall we start?
Shall we start? Yeah, sure. Okay, we have quite a few people joining us. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today for the third webinar of our Spotlight webinar series on flow profiling. And I hope you're all keeping safe. Just to quickly introduce myself, I am Chada Jaraholu. I'm an operator and sustain engineer at LYTT, and I also lead our flow profiling development. My background is in petroleum engineering. I previously worked as a wireline engineer for a service company, and then later worked as a production petrophysicist for a distributed sensing company, where I developed first principle models for distributed fiber optic data. Then I joined LYTT almost a year ago. It's been a really exciting journey in which I learned a lot more about machine learning and have taken part in forming our hybrid analytics. And having previously worked in more conventional oil and gas practices, I really enjoy my time at LYTT, where we get to transform the way that data is analyzed to solve one of the most complex oil and gas challenges. And that's pretty much me. And I'm here with Alessandro, one of our data scientists.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Charles said, I'm Alessandro Delfino. I'm a data scientist here at LYTT. And my background is completely different from Charles. I had no oil and gas experience before joining LYTT. In fact, my background is in audio signal processing. During my PhD, I worked a lot on acoustic fingerprinting, which is the technology that Shazam uses to recognize music from short noisy recordings. And before joining LYTT, I was working for a company that provides fraud detection in phone calls. These experiences might seem very distant from what LYTT is doing, but they're actually very relevant. In fact, audio fingerprinting is very relevant to detecting the fluid phase. In fact, recognizing a song is very similar to recognize the phase of a fluid by its sound, the sound it produces while flowing. Whilst the fraud detection problem is an anomaly detection problem, which is very similar to sound detection in the pipes. So I joined LYTT because using acoustics to detect events happening kilometers below the surface is well, first very cool and very exciting for someone with my background. So, Charles, shall we start with today's agenda?
Yeah, sure. As I previously mentioned, our series is on flow profiling, specifically how we develop and deliver our flow profiling capabilities. Prad and Timur presented a real-life business challenge and an overview on our inflow profiling stack in our first webinar 2 weeks ago. Vishnu and James shed light on how we convert these models into apps that are that run real time last week, and today we will be presenting our current profiling stack, flow profiling stack, and try to answer some of the major questions around it. These will be: what do we mean by hybrid analytics and how we develop such models? What are the major challenges that we face, and how do we combine domain expertise with machine learning to overcome these challenges? Well, before that, we would like to start by sharing our inflow detection product Prad and Timur showed a couple weeks ago.
Give me 1 second.
Right.
Play the video.
Right. Here, what we see is noise made by fluid flowing from the reservoir into the well, generated using data-driven methods applied to both temperature and acoustic data. So this well here has 3 major producing zones, the top 3. On the first 2 tracks on the left, you see DTS and one of the DOS features. And in the bottom, you see the choke represented by a red line. And the dynamic inflow of fluids is presented as a heat map with depth along the vertical axis and time along the horizontal. You can see every time we choke the well up, we can see how the inflow changes, enabling us detect the inflow real time. It is probably worth iterating that what you see is just a short section of this data from this well, but we made this product available on cloud to our customer for this very specific asset. And this map is updating real time as the data comes in as we speak now. Last week, James and Vishnu explained in detail how the solutions are delivered. We will touch on this later when we share our workflow, which outlines how we turn the distributed fiber optic data that is acquired anywhere around the world locally into a flow product that is available to our customers online, and how we do it real time. Now, let's take a look at what's in our product portfolio. So what we have just looked at is one of our inflow surveillance products. It just detects where the inflow is coming. So in simple terms, it answers the where question. And we call it our inflow detection product. You see it on the top left box. Those of you who watched Prad's webinar will remember he also mentioned the other 2 questions that we're trying to answer: what and how much. So our products for these questions are phase classification and rate quantification. Altogether, these 3 make our inflow surveillance stack. Now, it's probably worth mentioning the alternative ways in which our customers can get such information and how our solution differs from them. So the more conventional alternatives would be the well logs, right? Production logs. But these are snapshot measurements, and they represent the production profile of a well at a given point in time. However, reservoirs are dynamic, and the production profile changes throughout the life cycle of the well. And even in the very short video, we've seen how much it changes, right? And what we bring to the table is continuous real-time production monitoring. Then we have our production optimization products, where surveillance is about having a full view of wells production. Optimization is about maximizing what you get out of your asset. Alessandra, we recently worked on an oil well where we captured changes in production. Would you like to give us an example from that?
Sure. What we've seen many times with our customers is that a section that was once producing oil started producing gas when they ramped up the well. So this is a very common behavior. And can you please explain why this is important for our customers?
Yeah. So usually there are 2 main reasons. First, gas inflow hinders oil production and therefore decreases the value our customers get out of their wells. And second, the surface equipment is usually chosen according to estimated production rates in the beginning of the well's life. And any changes to that rate may require changes to surface equipment, and this could delay production at optimum rates. So these are just a few examples of where production optimization is crucial. And what we are providing our customers with is the automation of this process. We design apps that automatically detect water or gas breakthrough and provide real-time zonal production allocation. So those make up our inflow capabilities. On the outflow side, we have the outflow detection and rate quantification. Currently, we have a fully automated injection profiling capability that uses DFO data to produce injection profiles. We can also define the injection zones, and the app produces zonal injection allocation in time. So you can see how your zonal injection changes in time. Now, let's take a look at our approach of turning fiber data into inflow profiling products. Over to you, Alessandro.
Thanks, Char. So in this picture, we can see the old flow chart that describes the entire process, from fiber optic data acquisition on the left to the generation of the flow profile on the right. This picture is split in two main blocks, the gray one on the left, named RTPU, and the light yellow one on the right, named Cloud. RTPU stands for Real-Time Processing Unit, and it's an analytics computational unit that sits on site and processes both DATs and DTS signals. So what the image shows here is how the operations are split between those computed on site using light RTPU and those that are performed on the cloud. So on the left, we can see that we acquire two different types of signal from the fiber. An acoustic one, known as a distributed acoustic sensing, which is DAS, and a thermal one called DTS, which stands for distributed temperature sensing. So let's talk about these two signals. So DAS technology basically transforms the fiber optic into a long microphone array that generates thousands of audio tracks at different depths. As you can imagine, this creates a huge amount of data. We're talking terabytes per hour, or the equivalent of downloading like thousands of Netflix films every hour. DTS uses the fiber to measure temperatures at different depths. As if we had deployed thousands of thermometers along the wellbore. From both DAS and DTS signals, we then extract features. Light's proprietary features. Extracting feature means that reducing the dimensionality of the data. In fact, capturing only the necessary information for classification is crucial. Reducing the size is important because, as you can see in the picture, the features are then securely transmitted over the internet to the cloud. So we only want to transmit useful data to be able to give a response in a few seconds. On the cloud, we can see that we apply different models to the features. These models can be split into two main categories: first principle models and machine learning based models. First principle models are those based on the laws of physics. Char, as you are the expert here, can you please give an example of a first principle model?
Sure. The one that's based on Joule-Thomson effect is a good one, I think. When the fluids are pushed through an orifice from a high pressure medium into a low pressure one, their temperatures change. It is a physical mechanism that is well understood and described. For instance, we know that the gas cools down while most liquids heat up during this process. Therefore, it is a first principle model that uses this theory can be applied to find out the inflow locations. That's not to say that there aren't other mechanisms that create temperature changes, by the way. Also, some changes can be too small to be detected by the senses. I guess this is just one example that shows how the first principle models can be super useful, but they do have their shortcomings.
Thanks, Char. The other main category of models is based on machine learning. In this case, we let the computer figure out the rules from a bunch of labeled samples. In the training phase, we give the machine examples representing each class. The algorithm then automatically learns the decision boundaries in the feature space and uses them to predict future events. Let me give you an example. We want to make an acoustic sand detector, which means we want the machine to detect the sound of sand entering the pipe. What we have to do is to give the machine a lot of DAS example when there's sand entering the pipe, and as well as examples of where there's no send entry in the pipe. So basically we create two classes. And then we train a classifier on that training data, which eventually will be able to detect whether there's send entering or not. The last block is the most important one, is the fusion block. This is the core of the hybrid model. It is responsible of combining the output of all the models and generates the inflow or outflow profile of the well. Its goal is to maximize the likelihood of our prediction being correct and as accurate as possible. So let's move on to the challenge of this approach. As I said, like every machine learning task needs a training data. It means having a data set that contains a good number of examples of all the classes that we want to detect. In our case, this is a bit tricky because we cannot install sensors kilometers underground to monitor a producing well, what we would call the ground truth. So what we can do is to recreate these examples in a lab environment where we simulate different fluids flows, different fluid mixtures, and sand entries. Here is to make sure that the classifier captures the correct characteristic that define the problem, because the size of the lab environment is much smaller than the real well. A simple analogy that I found very helpful. The goal for us would be to distinguish between the two classes represented by the pictures on the right column of the motorbike and the car. But the problem is that the only examples of the two classes we can train our algorithm on are the ones on the left, with like bicycle and toy cars. We need to really understand the problem and the relationship between the training set and the test set. It's really important that we are able to calibrate our models. This is when LYTT's unique approach of combining data scientists with subsurface engineer and combining data-driven model with first principle models becomes very powerful and leads to accurate results. Can we move on to the next slide so you can describe how we overcome these challenges?
Sure, let's expand on the need to utilize the domain knowledge in ensuring the right inputs are fed into the machine learning model. As we mentioned before in the previous slide, we receive raw DAS and DTS data from our customers and extract our proprietary acoustic and thermal features. So these features are designed by our in-house audio signal processing and thermodynamic experts. But even when you have the features, their behaviors can be affected by a number of factors. Two major ones are the well and completion type and the flow regime in the borehole. An example that shows how the well type can affect signal behavior would be the DTS response from a vertical liquid producer versus a horizontal one. In a vertical well, it is relatively easy to see the temperature change that is caused by adding colder fluids into the borehole from the upper sections of the well. However, in a horizontal well, most of the fluids come from the same depth, therefore they have the same temperature. In such a case, using DTS features for inflow detection, it would be just wrong. It would lead to a wrong answer. Therefore, it is useful to ensure well and completion design is accurately understood in order to select the right features for a given case. Alessandro, would you like to give us an example of how the signal changes based on the flow regime?
Yeah. What we've seen in our experiments is that like the same type of fluid can make a different noise depending on the gas liquid content and therefore the flow regime in the borehole that it flows in. So as you have already mentioned, different completion type affect our signal too, especially gas. In fact, the sounds we record are very different if the fiber is placed inside versus outside the pipe, because the sound propagates very differently inside or outside the pipe. So we have to account for that in our models. This is why we believe that the right approach for solving such a complex problem is the fusion between data-driven approaches and first principle models. And that concludes our final slide. This was our final webinar, Inflow Profiling. However, I'm sure many more will be organized and we will update you via our LinkedIn page. Please stay in touch. We put our contacts, our emails, char@lytt.tech, alessandro.delfino@lytt.tech. And if for those who are interested in catching up on our field results, we have a paper that's been accepted for presentation at the SPE 2020 on inflow profiling. So now let's open up for questions. Oh, and let me put my face back on the screen as well. I already have some.
We already have some questions come in, yeah.
Let's go first. There's one that asks, how do you validate your result? That's a great question. So, well, we have various methods for validating our results. The classic one is to compare against PL, so production logging. So we had the opportunity to run a couple of blind tests where we basically acquired the DAS and DTS along with PL logs. And we asked the customer to keep the log for the production logs for themselves and just give us DAS and DTS. We conducted our analysis. We provided an inflow profile, and then we compared our final results with the PLs, and the results were we found out that our results matched the PL interpretation.
Matched pretty well, yeah. Another question, where you don't, sorry. Another question here is about using other data for our algorithm. So does the algorithm require other inputs like permeability and porosity to generate inflow logs? So no, we don't use other sensor data for our algorithms. Our algorithms use distributed fiber optic data. However, that's not to say we don't compare our results with, for instance, a permeability log to check how we're doing and or to enhance or like learn from this. So yeah, that's the answer. We also, by the way, this is not asked, but we also don't use other sensor data such as surface information, such as a choke data. In fact, one of our models, one of our injection optimization models needs well status information, whether the well is flowing or shut in, and we get this information from fiber data.
Yeah, there's some questions here as well. I'll take this one. What are the limitations of DAS technology? Well, first of all, we have to remember that we're using fiber, therefore light, to listen 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers underground. So it's not that we have like high quality Microsoft down there. So like the signal to noise ratio sometimes is quite low. And also the sample rate is affected by the length of the fiber. So the longer the fiber, the lower the sample rate. So I won't go into details on that, but we at LYTT, we spend quite a lot of time in developing algorithms for denoising the signal.
Another question here, are algorithms unique for each client or each client requires a machine learning process? The algorithms aren't unique for each client, however, for completion type, basically. So you remember our inflow and outflow profiling stack. So we try to develop these models for specific completion type, for instance, cased and perfed versus open hole gravel pack. So these models we can deploy to any clients, and there are our models, and our features, by the way, are our patented features. And what we need is probably an initial calibration period, but this is specific for each well. We have one more here. What's the resolution of your inflow products? Can you detect production from thin sands? Well, good question, actually. So this really depends on the resolution of the data of our customers, right? So what's the resolution of the DAS and DTS box that is used in a specific case? I think DTS can have resolutions down to like 70 centimeters. DAS, I think, down to 3 meters. But recently, so we received various different kinds of data, and recently we just had a study, and we were able to detect production from sand bodies that are as thin as 2-3 meters. Hope that answers that question.
I'll take one more. There's a question regarding features. It says like, are these features specific physical quantities that can relate or purely computational in nature? So as we said already, we extract feature from both DTS and DAS signal, and obviously they come from signal processing. So like the DAS features are related to acoustic signal processing, and they're proprietary on our patent portfolio. And just think as a summary of the signal. So we just extract, like extracting feature means just extracting the only the necessary information from the signal that's required for the classifier.
Another question is separate feature vectors for each DAS and DTS, or one combined feature vector using both DAS and DTS. We have the features, a DAS feature set and a DTS feature set, and then from then on, once we're on the same depth and time, we use them, all together where it's needed. You mentioned you compared your results to PLT. Can you describe any other benefits using the fiber optic rather than PLT for inflow or outflow detection? Oh yeah, so usually in a PLT you have a few rates, two or three rates to calibrate the spinner. As I said, it's a snapshot. What we can do with fiber data is actually understand how the inflow changes. Inflow or outflow changes with the changes in independent parameters such as choke, right? So we can literally just open the well up and see how different producing zones come online, in what order, and things like this. And also crossflow can be detected. I think that can be done with PL as well. But also these are just inflow and outflow capabilities. We also have well integrity seismic capabilities. I'm sure there are going to be webinars organized on that as well. Do you have a DAS only workflow in case we don't have DTS data, only one single mode fiber in the well? So we try to give hybrid answers, hybrid in terms of DAS and DTS as well. However, yes, we know that most of our clients, some of our clients have just one well. So it's just one fiber and single mode fiber. Yeah, we do have DAS only and DTS only products as well. However, that we get the richest answers from DAS and DTS. DAS and DTS products. In such cases, we have a tool with which we can just switch from DAS to DTS and record alternately.
I'll take this. The last
we have
one.
1 more minute. Yeah.
Yeah. How does algorithms developed from lab compare with the field? And that's exactly. We achieved quite good results using lab results and applying to the field. But we achieved that because we combine not only data-driven and so not only machine learning models, but we combine them with first principle models, and that's what we believe it's our strength.
Right. I think that was it.
We will follow up for all the questions that we haven't answered by email.
That's right.
Well,
thanks
this
everyone.
webinar will be on YouTube. Thanks everyone.
Thank you for joining. Hope to see you soon.